Hey guys, welcome to Unbiased Rugby. So that's it. The regular season for Super Rugby is over. We go next week into the quarters and then the semis and then the finals. So overall, pretty good weekend for South African sides. But yeah, I was actually going through the logs, which I'm going to discuss after I've spoken about just the scores quickly, and obviously my opinions on the conference system and the ways forward, and what would be fair and not fair and things like that. But yeah, let's go through the games. So the first game of the weekend, we had the Chiefs versus the Hurricanes. I think I was one of only a few people that chose the Chiefs to win. So actually I got a match point and a bonus point on my Super Brew, which is great. I think through the whole Super Brew, I think I only got 2 wrong. Which is not that great, but it really moves me off the bottom spot, and I doubt I'm going to end the season on the bottom, so which is pretty good news for my group. I did watch that game. I think the Chiefs were a lot hungrier for the victory. Just silky skills on both sides. I can see what Kieran Reid was trying to say. Those derbies are just so intense, and the New Zealand guys they're going through absolute hell, and luckily they've got quite a lot of depth. But sure, I think it's quite painful to watch. It's beautiful rugby, it's hard and it's amazing. But good to see my man Brodie Retallick back. And he scored a try, which is excellent. But yeah, I think next week they play each other again, which is also strange. But yeah, it was an interesting game. Chiefs deserved the win. Great. Next game of the weekend, we had the Reds versus the Sunwolves. The Reds just were a much classer outfit than the Sunwolves. Sorry, somebody was knocking at my window. My wife's looking at me, knocking through the window. So. The Reds are a much classier outfit than the Sunwolves. Sunwolves would have been nice if they got a victory, but I think they didn't. They ended off their season with a bit of a whimper. I think they only won. I'm not sure how many games they won over the season, but it wasn't a hell of a lot. But I do think they improved from last year, but not by much. What I'm going to do at the end of this is I'm just going to do. I normally give a rating 1 to 5 or 0 to 5, and then 0 to -5 on improvement or not improving. It's not about how good the team is; it's how they've improved year on year. Next game of the weekend, we had the Highlanders versus the Rebels. I don't always support the Highlanders, but it was so good to actually see them win, because it obviously started aligning everything for the Sharks to obviously sneak it in. So that late tackle by Wasaki Nahola was immense. So it was really, really good. The Rebels were up for it, and I think the writing was on the wall from that point, and it looked like it was going to be a South African day, which is always good. Next game of the weekend was the Crusaders versus the Blues. Gee, I don't even know what to say anymore. We can give so many adjectives to the Crusaders on how wonderful they are, what kind of culture they have, how they play for each other, how they just are the most well-rounded team ever at the moment. I doubt there is a club or a franchise anywhere in the world that is on their level. And I think if they were playing in the Premiership, if they were playing in the Pro 14, or they're playing the European Championship, that team would walk over everyone. So yeah, and then the Blues. It's pity Jerome Kano was his last game for the Blues, and it's pity they didn't get the win. But yeah, that was two teams that are on complete polar opposites ends of skill level, and not skill levels. I still know the Blues are a highly skillful team, and they've got some amazing players. But I was actually watching the breakdown during the week, and they were talking about how the Crusaders seem to play for each other, and they've got the people that do the hard work. Actually, it was the Super First 15, which is obviously a South African show, and they were talking about how the Crusaders they've got the guys that are just the workhorses. They come in week out and they just work and they work and they work and they work for each other. whereas the Blues seem to have these game breakers, and they don't really have those grafters. So yeah, I think it's back to the drawing board for the Blues. I don't think they've ever ended this low, ever, or maybe once or twice in their history. But it's been an atrocious season for the Blues, and I think they're really looking forward to seeing the end of it. Next game was the Waratahs versus the Brumbies. Another game that went South Africa's way. So the Brumbies wanted that victory a lot more than the Waratahs. They just seemed to score from everywhere, and that's just. I still rate the Waratahs. I think Michael Hooper's coming back, so they're going to have all their big stars coming through. I know they've got the Highlanders at home next week, which I think will be quite an epic game, because the Highlanders' form hasn't been that great for the last couple of games. But obviously then they'll have Aaron and Ben Smith back. So yeah, it's. But yeah, the Brumbies deserved that victory, and it was good for the Lions. Next game was the Lions versus the Bulls. Even though the Bulls got off quite quickly off the mark, it just never had a feeling that the Lions were going to lose. Still, I don't know that Lions side. I don't know. You know how many times they were in the opposition 22. If you start looking at the minutes. I was looking at the Crusaders versus the Blues, and the Crusaders were in the Blues 22 for 3 minutes, and they were way in the lead. They had scored 3 tries. The Blues were in there for 6 minutes, and they hadn't scored anything. The Lions, they were literally camped inside the Bulls 22 for extended period, and they just couldn't convert that into points, which is a little bit frustrating. Their maul that doesn't seem to be as effective as last year. Look, they're getting their big players back. Like Ruan Combrink, he seems to be on form. Skusan's back. Malcolm Marx is back. Whiteley's back. Mostert he's always been there, but so they've got the players. They just need to work on their defence. And you can see the kind of coaching. Swys de Bruin is going to be the attacking coach for the Springboks. So it's all out attack, and there's very, very little focus on defence, which they're going to come up short, because if you look at the Crusaders, they're good at attack and defence. So yeah, and actually they turn their defence into an attack. So what I mean by that is, I think there was one passage of play where there must have been about 21 phases for the Blues, and then one mistake and they scored a try. So yeah, it's but I had predicted the Bulls would win because that's my team, but I'm not too sad that the Lions won. So they've secured their home final, the home quarters. Then the next game of the weekend, we had the Sharks versus the Jaguares. It was atrocious conditions. South Africans don't like playing in the rain, so it was seriously atrocious conditions, and it was quite strange that. For me, it felt like the Jaguares were trying to dominate the Sharks, and the Sharks are the kind of side that it's pretty difficult to dominate them up front, because they've got some big guys that play with their forwards and some really big backs, and it just seemed like the Sharks didn't look like they were going to lose at all at any point during that game. I didn't feel that they were going to lose. But yeah, they've snuck it in. They snuck it in the last game of the season. They've actually made it to the quarters, and as a huge big prize for making it into the quarters, they travel all the way to Christchurch to play the Crusaders. What a prize! So got a feel for them. I think they've got to travel the furthest. And you know what? If I was the Sharks, I'm sure the bookies have 100 to 1 that they're going to win. That the Sharks are going to beat the Crusaders. It's doubtful that it's ever going to happen. I was looking at the teams, and I look at game breakers or on both sides. I was looking at Jack Goodhue, Ryan Crotty, Sam Whitelock. I don't know if Barrett is back. Kieran Reid. That's 5 already. Before I've even gone, these are like game breakers. These are international players. And I was looking for the Sharks, and I was going, well, obviously we've got Tendai of the Beast, Jean-Luc, but I don't know if if he's injured, if he's going to be playing next week. But I'd say that those two are the proper, real standout Springboks. Aka's played a game, and a few of others. Thomas the Tank's played a few games, but none of them. If I look like for like, I just look at that Crusader side, and there's just star after star after star after star, and even the guys that aren't the All Blacks are still stars. So yeah, I think they're going to have a tough time at the office, but I think the Sharks must just throw the kitchen sink at it. Everyone's writing them off. They might as well just throw everything at it. It's your last game of the season. You might as well just go for broke. So let them just throw everything at that game. And stranger things have happened. Maybe the Crusaders, they don't switch on their alarm, and they come late in the day, and they miss the whole game. So things can happen on the day. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go through, because on the left, just on my left screen here, I've actually taken the end of year log points from 2007, and I've put them against 2018. I've just compared them. Yes, I know there's 1 game difference between the 2 years. I think last year there were 15 games, and this year there were 16 games. But I put them the scores next to each other, and just to go show what are their points between -5 and 5. And like I said, it's not about how good the team is. It's about how they've improved, or how much better they are from last year. So obviously I've got the Crusaders. They had ended up on the same points that they did last year, on 1 less game, which is highly impressive. But I'll be honest, the Crusaders this year look like 200% better than the Crusaders of last year. So they're on another level. I've given them a point of 2, 2 out of 5. And like I said, it's not about 5 is obviously you scored 0 points the 1 year, and then you scored 50 the following year. So that's what I mean by a 5. But still, to have an improvement from last year, and being at such a high level, I've given them a point of 2. We've got the Hurricanes and the Chiefs. What I've done is I haven't done it according to the conferences. I've actually done it purely by points, which I feel it should have been done for in the quarterfinals. So literally, best team on the day, best team with the points gets their home final. That's I believe is the best way to have Super Rugby. I've got the Hurricanes and Chiefs. I've given them both half a point from last year, because 58-51, 57-49 respectively. That's the point difference. But still, they're still the top 2. The top 3 sides are the New Zealand sides, and that's just the way it is according to the points. But they haven't improved that much from last year. But by saying that, they're still extremely talented compared to all the other teams. I'm just talking about pure improvement from 1 year to the next. The Lions, I've given a -3. The Lions 65 points last year, and they ended up this year on 46, and that's a huge big drop for me in points. That's huge. It's 19 points from 1 year to the next. That's definitely a -3. They're not the same team as last year. They've got the same players as last year, so I think they deserve their spot where they are. They're still third overall in the points, but they're not the same team as last year. I think last year was their one chance of actually winning, and they just couldn't put it off. But I've given them a -3. The Highlanders, I've given them a -half a point, because I do feel that they've gone backwards from last year, not by much. And it's quite strange that I'm saying that, because they are much better than all the other teams, but I'm saying compared to last year. The next team would be the Waratahs, and you won't believe this, but the Waratahs have actually improved so much from last year, so I've given them a 3. They're probably the most improved, one of the most improved sides across, actually them and the Rebels are the most improved side from last year to this year, and that's obviously it goes to show that there's been a big improvement in Australian rugby from last year to this year. Sharks, I've given them a -1. They haven't done as well as they did last year, but they've obviously still made the quarters, which is great news for them, but they have gone a bit backwards. The Stormers, I've given them a -2, because they've also gone quite far backwards. The Bulls, I'm not being biased here, but I've given them a 1 because literally they went from 20 points last year to 29. So I've given them a 1. Maybe I should give them a half, so you know that I'm not being too biased. But I gave them a 1. People aren't going to like me for this, but obviously I've given the Reds also a 1 because they're also a big improvement from last year. It just goes to show that every single one of the Australian sides, literally all of them, have improved from last year. Even the Sunwolves didn't do that bad. They stayed about the same. So the Australian curve is up. The New Zealand curve is fairly up and flat, and the South African is quite down from last year. Except for the Blues. The Blues I've given a -2. They literally have gone seriously far backwards from where they did last year. And the last team was the Sunwolves, and I've given them a 0. So yeah, those are my ratings. I'll try to put them in the comments down below. What my ratings are, and please comment on it, and what do you guys think? Is it correct? Is it not correct? And let's have a discussion about it. So yes, I'd still stick with my guns. I say the Australian Conference is the most improved. The South African is the least. Actually, it's gone backwards, and the the New Zealand Conference has been still at that super high level. Okay, so next week's games, I'm obviously going to have a show during the week about next week's games, but here we go. These are the games. We've got the Hurricanes versus the Chiefs. Don't have to travel. We've got the Crusaders versus the Sharks. The Sharks have got an exciting 24-hour flight, and they've got an exciting week in Christchurch, and they've got a super exciting day next week, Saturday. The next game, we've got the Waratahs versus the Highlanders. I think this is going to be a cracker of a game. Both teams got exactly the same. Highlanders, Waratahs, 44 points for the years. They literally are very, very close on quality and points. And then the last game, the Lions versus the Jaguares. Jaguares also, actually I didn't even speak about the Jaguares. Where are they? I gave them a +2, sorry. Also super improved side from last year. Lions versus the Jaguares. Let's see what happens. I don't know. The Jaguares are actually staying in Durban, and then they're going to travel on Thursday up to the Highveld to go play the Lions. I don't know. England came up short doing it that way, but yeah, let's see. Maybe the Jaguares can pull it out, but they don't have to travel that far. It's only an hour flight. So yes, I think it's super great. But yeah, it was a great weekend of rugby. I enjoyed most of the games. It was highly entertaining from a South African point of view. Yes, it wasn't much improved. But yeah, my last 2 cents for the show. And I've been reading a lot of news articles and things about it. I think, look, next year there's still going to be the conference system next year, and I think there's 2020 is when the negotiations start again for the new Super Rugby format. So we just got to grin and bear it. Next year there's going to be another conference, the 3 conferences, and yeah, that's just the way it's going to be. We can't have a round robin next year because it actually works out to 28 games that you have to play, and that's 12 more than this year, so that's not going to happen. So next year is going to be the conference system game, so we're just going to have to figure it out. But yeah, the way that the conference systems are set up, it rewards mediocrity. It rewards teams that aren't doing very well, and I want to see like play like. I think by playing as a South African, seeing us play every single New Zealand side, home and away, would improve our rugby, and that's just the way I see it happening, and I'm hoping in 2020 that's the way that we go. But yes, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you had a great weekend of watching rugby, and I hope you have a great week. Chat to you guys soon. Cheers, bye.